What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got a fellow Alex. We got Alex from Psychostick. Great to talk to you again, man.
Good to see you, man. Well, hear you at this stage.
Yeah, exactly. You're all doing okay and safe during this hectic time?
Yeah, we've been good. We've just been meeting up a couple times a week to perform, but always like 6 feet apart. And by perform, I mean in our studio with webcams and stuff like that. So we're doing those every Thursday just to not only stay occupied, but also give a little bit of levity to the craziness in the world right now, so that people can log in and have a good time and kind of not worry about stuff for a couple hours and just, enjoy themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any band to provide comic relief for, it's you guys.
That's right.
Yeah. But, now that the latest Psychostick record due is on the 2-year-old mark, can we be expecting some new Psychostick fairly soon?
Absolutely. We have a whole bunch of songs. In our Google Doc, we have like a huge spreadsheet of all these different songs at different points in how far along they are. A lot of them are just demos or conceptual ideas so far, but we've recorded some stuff, and we don't have any like specific dates for putting anything out or anything like that, but we do have a significant amount of material, so expect that in the next, year or two.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. Do you take like a new approach to every single album? Like, do you try to make, Sandwich different from Space Vampires, different from Revenge, and do so on and so forth? Or is there like a formula that Psychostick tends to try to stick with?
It's not really a specific formula per se, but each album does seem to have its own kind of feel to it. Like the Do album, even the artwork and everything, it's like slightly dystopian in a sense. Like it's Do, like society is trying to tell you to be an adult and do things you're supposed to do, whereas Sandwich was like literally half that album is about food. So like half of those songs are just about either not having food or someone stole your food or talking about sandwiches, whatever it might be. So it's like semi-organized that way, but not on purpose.
Okay. Do you kind of have like do you and the rest of the band kind of have like a preconceived idea on how you want like an album to sound like? Like, is there a working concept around that, or does that kind of like come secondary in a way?
Yeah, that's actually kind of secondary, honestly. Like, it sort of I don't know, it kind of just evolves in that way. We start writing songs that are fun, and then before we know it, we've never really set out to write an album in recent years. It's more just writing songs here and there, and they're like, oh, wow, we have half an album already. Well, I guess we should finish writing this. So it's just unofficial.
So it's just like you're tracking it and be like, oh, wow, we have all the instrumentals done. We should probably have like a story or something like that.
Yeah, that kind of idea. Or we might have like a complete song with all the lyrics and all the vocals recorded and everything, but not really, it doesn't really have a home yet. It might be a single, it might be a video, or it might end up on an album, and who's to say, really?
That's awesome. One thing I was always really curious about, I never got a chance to ask you this last time, but, being that you all have, like, different characters that you portray on stage, you being Schmalix the Boy, also formerly Priest, or, I don't even know how to pronounce your vocalist, Rob, or something like that.
Rob, yeah.
Yeah, the J.
Yeah, my last name used to be Price. It's a German spelling, the E-I, so you pronounce the second vowel, so it's actually, that was Price. That was my last name up until 2010.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, are these, like, characters, like, extensions of who you personally are, or, like, are you just portraying somebody on stage and in the album completely out of your original element?
It's not completely out of element. It's more of I guess, sort of a caricature, in a sense. Like, my character in the band, in a sense, doesn't really have a voice necessarily, meaning when I'm on stage, the other three guys all have microphones in front of their faces, whereas I don't, typically. So they get to sort of poke fun at me, and I don't really have a chance to have a rebuttal. Therefore, that translates to making fun of me a lot.
Yeah, well, but you have like 40 pieces of drum hardware in front of you, so I think you upstage them in that regard.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Being a drummer, do you need music before you lay down the rhythm and the beat, or do you sometimes have like a whole drum pattern written down, and Josh and Maddie and Rob would kind of like write over that in a way?
It's actually a little bit more methodical than that. It usually takes sort of a demo that one of the guys will put together. Sometimes Josh will have a song with just like really, really basic drum tracks, not actual physical drums that he played, but programmed drums, just like a simple beat, and then I'll take the core idea of the song and then write a drum part for it, and then that'll change the groove and everything, and then they'll adjust what they're playing on guitar and bass to that as well. But usually what we do is we start with vocals, honestly. It's not the first thing we record, but we want the song to, generally we want the songs to be vocals first, so we have the idea of what the song's about and try to fit the music to what the song is actually about, rather than writing an instrumental and then plopping some lyrics on top of it.
That's a bold move. You ever worried you guys will have the best lyrics ever, but then everything you make is just one syllable over or under?
Yeah, it's happened before.
That's got to be heartbreaking.
Some songs were oh man, I don't know about this one, so we'll just kind of leave it for later. We have a song that never made due, but we wrote it 3 or 4 years ago, and just kind of making fun of the music industry is I forget the title of it, but we might revisit it someday. But it sounded it was supposed to be funny, poking fun at the music industry and how dumb it can be, but it sounded a little bit like we were just kind of complaining, and that wasn't how it was supposed to turn out, so we scrapped it. So we might just use the instrumental and put whole new lyrics on it later on, but yeah, they don't always work out.
You ever worried that one day, though, that original will somehow leak out into the world and just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Well, if it does, I guess I won't be complaining if it's a big hit.
Yeah, there you go. Being that you also teach in the realm of neuroscience, you said you teach in or something like that?
Yeah, I have my master's degree in business psychology, so I qualify to teach all the different psych courses. So my primary one that I'm teaching at Franklin University is neuropsychology, but I've also done coaching, social psychology, and motivation. I've done a whole bunch of different types of classes.
Is there anything that ties that and music together, in terms of, is there maybe a mathematical element that applies to both in a way, or is it just two things that you just enjoy doing?
Well, actually, the concept behind it is what I titled my book that I wrote last year called Dichotomies, because I really like dichotomies in my own life. Music and touring and schooling are not supposed to go together, so that's the dichotomy, but I did both to earn my degrees. And then business and psychology, a lot of people think, what's that? And I kind of just explain it every business you are ever going to have where you have customers, whether it's a service or a product, you're going to be selling to humans. So it makes sense to know the psychology behind the business. So it sounds like a dichotomy, but it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So there's not a direct link, but I just like it when my life is weird and only half makes sense, and I can be creative in, really differing kind of ways.
Yeah, that's really... And on top of that, you play in a band, and I think the most humorous band, and I mean it as a compliment in metal, so, that's just a dichotomy within itself.
Yeah, comedy metal, exactly.
Yeah.
Same exact idea.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that has to, is maybe, if your students were to see you in concert, would they obviously be seeing, a completely different side of you?
Yes. What's funny is when I started teaching, August of last year, that was the first class I ever did, the first email I ever received from any student was, "Are you that guy in that band Psychostick?" They called me on it. This student, she knew exactly who I was. I'm like, damn it.
Oh man, that's got to be pretty awesome though, right?
It's awesome, but I was a little concerned about it because obviously I put in the work and I earned the degrees and all that good stuff, but I didn't want students to make the assumption that just because I'm in a crazy metal band that I wouldn't be a legitimate teacher,
Yeah, you gotta make an example out of a student, fail somebody on purpose. You should.
Is anyone listening?
Yeah, you should have failed that. You should have failed that student on purpose who called you out on it, being like, "That's my way of saying I don't want people to know."
Oh, I missed the chance. She got an A.
Fair enough. Always next year, right?
Yes, always next year.
Yeah, and I'd imagine, is there maybe because it's such an interesting concept studying psychology and neuroscience and really just how the brain works. And being a drummer, you almost have to split your brain in two. I'd imagine that this has to hone your creativity in a way, right?
Yeah, actually, I think that it does. I actually wrote a song. I wrote lyrics for a song, at least, that was about being hangry. So, like when you're mad because you're so hungry, and I wrote it from a neuroscience perspective. So I used all the, the $10 words and everything, just all the specific neuroanatomy parts about the, the temporal lobe and the occipital lobe, and all this stuff, like using these words that people will be like, "What the hell is he talking about?" And then it's like a really nerdy way of saying that you're hungry. So, yeah, the song's, it's not, finished. I don't know if we'll ever, wrap that one up, but it's conceptually done, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously, writing this autobiography, I know it's an autobiography, but, don't spoil it too much. I haven't had a chance to read it fully yet. But,
oh, sure.
But, like, I'd imagine writing a book as well is also another art that you have to obtain, right?
Yeah, creative writing is a whole different beast from academic writing or just lyric writing or whatever it would be. It definitely takes, separate skills, but they overlap a lot too, because you can write a really boring book that's really informative, or you can write a really interesting book that's not informative at all. So it takes different skills, and so trying to combine all the things like my history of lyric writing, trying to make interesting phrases, I tried to bring that, in a sense, to my book writing style, and just try to kind of catch people off guard with like certain phrases, and making sure that introductions are interesting enough to make you want to read the next chapter and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like I'd imagine writing a book is kind of in a way like writing an album. Each chapter has to lead up to another, as each song has to lead up to another, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This particular one is sequential, so each chapter is after a year. So it's my history, 6 years in college on tour. So you'll have chapter 2011, and then chapter 2012, and all the way up through chapter 2017, where I graduated.
Oh, wow. That's
chronological, too.
Fascinating. And really, I mean, just teaching and touring at the same time. Are you ever going to, like, teach while you're on tour? Like, maybe, like, do a lecture as you're drumming on stage or something like that via video chat or something?
I haven't yet, but I'm supposed to be on the road with Dog Fashion Disco, the band Dog Fashion Disco, in June, and I'll also be simultaneously teaching neuropsychology then. So since it's online, I mean, I can hopefully get the classes on days off or whatever, but I'd have to see the actual schedule for how it's going to work out. But at this point, I'm supposed to be doubling up on both those things, so that'd be fun.
There you go. And I have a couple more questions for you. One thing, and I believe I mentioned it last time, but, being a comedy rock band, a lot of people assume, and I think comedy rock gets such an unfair assumption sometimes because people think it's comedy rock. There's no serious moments in here. They're just dicking around or whatever. But for you, because I thought when I saw you at Kingsland, which was my first time ever, I was very impressed on a technical level with the way that you guys were holding everything together. There has to be some moment of seriousness when it comes to songwriting or even playing live, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of equate it to the idea of a professional comedian. Like, if you have a stand-up comedian, they hone their craft. They have to. So if you have somebody that's like I'm not saying we're brilliant like Dave Chappelle or anything like that, but he has mastered the art of comedy, and that takes some serious skill. And you have to be like really determined, persistent to actually develop those skills. So in a similar manner, obviously we're not Meshuggah or anything at the level of quality of how good we are at our instruments, but we've been a band for like 20 years. We've been honing our craft all this time, so we can still definitely play. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of serious work that goes into being silly and goofy.
Yeah, and I imagine that has to keep it interesting for you guys too, and that's why you've been able to be a band for 20 years, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, if it wasn't interesting, if it wasn't fun, I mean, we wouldn't be doing it anymore.
Yeah. I don't understand how those serious doom metal bands could be in a band for so long and, like, just always be miserable all the time, but continue to do it.
I've noticed with bands kind of like that, sometimes they just keep breaking up and then getting back together. I think it's just because they hate everything so much that the band breaks up, and then they hate not hating stuff enough. And so they get back together, and it's like this ongoing cycle.
You need to write another book, like a neuroscience hypothesis on metal. I actually wrote a whole essay in art school on mosh pitting, and my teacher, who's a famous writer, became a diehard Heaven Shall Burn fan because of it. So.
Oh, man. That's awesome.
So, you never know.
You never know.
I have two more questions for you, if that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the songwriting process, how do you know when a song is done?
That's a really good question, and it really depends on the individual, because I like putting out 2-minute fast songs, just get them out, you're done. Like, my perspective for songwriting is much quicker than some of my bandmates even. Our bass player, Matty, is much more methodical. He has, like, this idea that a song is never really finished, it just keeps evolving, and that just sounds tiresome to me. Like, I want to write a new song. I want to finish one project and, start another one and put out a lot of material. But we keep refining stuff over the years, like even live. So songs will change a little bit with like tempo or drum fills or whatever. But it's a lot less methodical from my standpoint. So it just kind of depends. But to answer your question, I guess once everybody can agree that it's funny in our camp, like if everybody laughs at the final thing, like, if no one laughs at the song, then we're not doing it right for this particular band, because it's supposed to be funny metal. So we know it's done when it's funny enough that we all laugh at it.
All right, that's actually a really good. That was one of the most concrete answers I've ever gotten for that question. I stumbled everybody with it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask one little fan question, if that's cool. For the viewers out there, what's it like making music for the Angry Video Game Nerd?
That was really interesting. You're actually kind of asking the wrong guy, because before we met up with him and recorded that thing in his basement or whatever it was, like the studio he has, before we did that, I never watched any of his videos. I think I saw like one. So I wasn't historically a fan beforehand. So what they did was, my guys got me the demo. I was like, all right, here's the original. Here's how we're going to change it. So I just recorded this drum part. I didn't even really know the song or anything. So I had to go watch the videos after recording it, and then like, oh, that's why this guy is so popular. And then when we met him at his shop and everything to film that video with him, I'm like, this dude rules. Like, he's like the nicest guy ever. So it's really funny to see him just like freak out and scream at everything on his videos. Then you meet him, he's like so sweet.
Yeah, that's
such a good guy.
That's my favorite thing. That's what got me into YouTube, that guy. So
yeah. I hear that a lot from people. Like, people might come up at shows and like meet us and be like, oh, it's great to meet you. What's it like to meet Angry Video Game Nerd? And they're like starstruck indirectly. It's really funny, because they're not starstruck by us. They're just like, what's it like to meet James Rolfe?
You should watch interviews with him. It's honestly like you have journalists like asking him seriously, so what kind of special effects do you use to bring the fecal matter in on your show? Like, is this like a
oh my god,
like very deep artistic questions about his aesthetic?
Does he answer them seriously, or does he just joke about it?
You could tell that he's trying his ass off not to laugh, but he answers them seriously.
Oh, that's funny. What a guy.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. Great to talk to you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. Is there just anything that you would like to promote? When can we be expecting your new autobiography, and when can we be expecting some new Psychostick?
Okay, so my autobiography is called Dichotomies, Lessons from a College Life on Tour, and that's already available.
Okay.
However, coming in the next few days, we're going to have an audiobook available. I'm working with a professional voice actor, and he's wrapping up the last 1%, just little tweaks on how to pronounce a couple really weird words. And so that's almost done. So that'll be up on Amazon in the next few days. I don't have an exact date. I'm still waiting on the email back. But yeah, the audiobook's coming out soon. The hardback, the paperback are already out. The digital copy's already out. You can get it on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, the Psychostick website, all of those.
Awesome.
As far as new music, we have most of recording already done, and we were going to be filming a video, around this time to put it out soon. But since we're not supposed to be around each other all that much, we're at least 6 feet apart, it's kind of hard to film a video. So we might just put out a song in the coming weeks. We haven't really decided exactly yet, but yeah, there's a lot more coming, probably this weekend, or not weekend, but this summer or fall.
Awesome. Well, Alex, again, thank you so much. Everybody, we are here with Alex, a.k.a. Schmalix of Psychostick. Be sure to check out his new autobiography, Dichotomies, and be sure to check out for some new Psychostick coming very soon. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.